Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hi everyone. Now I would like to present the introduction of our topic, which is ideology, modernism, and postmodernism. To begin with, what is ideology? Ideology can be defined as a set of ideas, values, and beliefs that influence how people see the world, understand truth, and organize society. Ideology affect the way people think, make decisions, and behave in everyday life. Next, let us talk about modernism. Modernism started around the 18th century during the Enlightenment period in Europe. This movement emphasized the importance of reason, rational thinking, and scientific methods in discovering the truth. Philosophers such as Rene Descartes, Immanuel Kant, John Locke, and David Hume believed that humans could achieve progress and create a better life through science and knowledge. Therefore, modernism strongly trusts science and objectify.
Hello everyone, my name is Irfan Habi. I will explain about the origin of modernism, the Enlightenment. Now let's delve the core of modernist talks. If its roots are in the Enlightenment, it means structure is the absolute faith in the power of human reason. Modernism saw the world as a giant machine or a great puzzle that could be fully understood. The key lies in using logic, method, and science. The ultimate goal was to decode the universe and use that knowledge to create progress.
Modernism also has several main characteristics. The first one is rationality, which means uh, logical. We use the logical thinking and also use the reason. The second is the scientific, which means the knowledge must be tested through of the experiment and observations. The last one is the naturalistic, it focuses on natural explanation rather than the supernatural ones. Over time, modernists continued to develop, especially in 20th century, with philosophers such as Karl Popper and Bertrand Russell. Science was not only used to study nature, but also solve human and social problems. In conclusion, science plays a central of the modernism. It shapes modern thinking by promoting rationality, scientific methods, and progress in human life.
Okay, so I will explain regarding the core of modernism thinking, who believe that humans could understand reality through rational thought and experience. Modernism also focus on using reason to organize society to be more systematically and rationally. By applying rational thought, humans were believed to be able to design better social system in areas such as politics, education, and law. The success of science and the scientific method strengthened the modernist belief in progress. This belief continued into the 20th century with thinkers such as uh, Bertrand Russell and Karl Popper, who emphasized rational thinking and the scientific methods in solving natural and human problems. The modernist belief in progress was reinforced by success of science and the scientific methods. This view persisted into the 20th century thanks to intellectuals like Karl Popper and Bertrand Russell, who placed a strong emphasis on using reason and the scientific method to solve both human and natural problems. In a sense, modernism placed a strong emphasis on using human reason and scientific ideas to advance society and make life better.
Now we are opening a new critical and important chapter in our discussion, postmodernism. To understand this ideology, we first have to look at the world it was reacting to. As we heard earlier, in the modernist era, science had become the absolute yardstick of truth. It was used to measure every single area of knowledge and aspect of life. This was a massive and radical project that tried to claim that only the intellectual and scientific aspect of life mattered. However, this dominance met with fierce opposition. A group of thinkers emerged who rejected the modernism brought by the Enlightenment and logical positivism. Their main argument was that the modernist approach was what they called logocentric. Logocentrism refers to an approach that emphasizes a purely rational mind. To the postmodernist, relying solely on reason created a deeply unbalanced perspective. Why did they view it as unbalanced? Because if we look closely at the human being, we are not just walking calculators. Postmodernists argued that the human being does not consist only of intellectual aspects. We are also driven by emotional, intuitive, and spiritual aspects. Postmodernism argues that by focusing only on the rational, modernism ignored these vital parts of the human experience. Consequently, postmodernism became a rebellion. It is a rebellion against logocentrism, against rigid rationality, and against the strict objectivity of the scientific method. They argued that science is not only the paradigm. For instance, logical positivists claimed that any knowledge that wasn't scientific, such as metaphysics, wasn't real knowledge at all. Postmodernists reject this boundary. They challenge us to accept that the truth is broader than just what can be measured in a lab.
Postmodernism challenges the modernist belief that science is fully objective, rational, and always progressing toward absolute truth. Instead, postmodern thinkers argue that science is influenced by human and social factors. From this perspective, scientific knowledge does not develop in a purely logical or linear way. It is shaped by historical, cultural, and social contexts, which questions the idea that science alone can provide absolute truth. A key thinker in this critique is Thomas Kuhn. Kuhn argued that scientific progress happens through paradigm shifts, where one dominant theory replaces another, rather than through steady accumulation of facts. He also emphasized that these shifts are not based on rational reasoning alone. Psychological factors such as emotions, aesthetic preferences, and sociological factors, such as acceptance by influential scientific communities, affect which theories are accepted. In conclusion, postmodernism does not reject science, but challenges its claim to full objectivity, encouraging a more critical understanding of scientific knowledge.
Another group linked to postmodernism is called social constructivists. They believe that knowledge does not fully represent objective truth. Instead, knowledge is shaped by society, cultural, and human interests. According to this view, humans decide what is important to study. Scientists do not observe nature in completely natural way. They choose certain aspects of nature that are useful or meaningful to humans. Because of this, science reflects human interests rather than pure objectivity. Social constructivists argue that scientists are selective in their work. They focus on specific ideas and ignoring others. This means science is influenced by social values, not just fact. One example is Ludwig Fleck, who studied the history of medicine. He explained that medical terms like defense mechanism show social influence because they reflect how society understands the human body. Another example is Darwin's theory of evolution. Social constructivists say that Darwin was influenced by Thomas Malthus' book, An Essay on Population, which discuss competition and survival in society. This example shows that social condition can influence scientific ideas. Therefore, social constructivists conclude that science is not completely objective, but shown by social and external factors. This idea is an important part of postmodern thinking about science.
Next, beyond relativism, postmodernism is also associated with other crucial ideologies. We are familiar with deconstruction by Derrida, a method for unraveling hidden assumptions within text. There is also Michael Foucault's take on knowledge and its relationship to power, where knowledge is always intertwined with social control. Furthermore, postmodernism is linked to cognitive philosophy like existentialism, whose figure included Albert Camus. This stream emphasized the human aspect, the importance of society, the spiritual aspect, and subjectivities. Things contrary to modernism's focus on objectivity, rationality, and scientification. It is clearly seen that postmodernism is a reaction to modernist ideology, a contradiction that persists to this day. Next, we're talking about postmodernism, the theory of relativism. One of postmodernism's main criticisms of modernism is its rejection of objective truth. Relativism assumes that truth can be seen from multiple angles. For example, in science, we might accept theory A as a true, and from another perspective, we might also see theory B as a true. This means that truth is not absolute, but there are different ways to understand reality. Postmodernism challenged modernist science by denying the assumptions that science is the only valid and objective means of acquiring absolute knowledge about the universe. For modernism, relative is a way to reject the concept of absolute truth claimed by science, and this is exactly what they see to challenge. Next, let us conclude by looking at the broader picture of contemporary thought. According to Professor Ernest Joliner, there are three main streams in the orientation of thought of contemporary society. The first is the stream of the Enlightenment rationalisms or modernisms. The second is the ideology that opposes Enlightenment rationalisms. This is what we identify as postmodernisms. And the third stream relates to religions, particularly discussion revolving around the religion of Islam. Postmodernism, as the opposite stream, rejects the total dominance of rationalism and science, opening space for alternative perspectives, including those based on religion and culture. These three streams interact and form foundation of our society's thought today.
Of relativism itself has been criticized by philosophers. The notion of relativism that says that there is no absolute truth is a statement that denies its own truth. If we say that there is no absolute truth, then this view also a view for which is not an absolute truth. So the statement has actually denied itself when we say that the statement is there no absolute truth, but can the statement also be considered as an absolutely untrue. To say there is no absolute truth, meaning that you are saying to even your statement about there is no absolute truth is not true because it's subject to the same belief. So the notion of relativism logically lacks strong logical basis. As per Islam, for example, there are some beliefs that are accepted by Muslims and their truth cannot be doubted or questioned. The truth is considered as an absolute truth. Believe in God. For example, believe in God. Belief in God is an absolute and questionable truth. On the other hand, if we have a relativistic ideology, we might assume that the ideology says God exists is acceptable, but at the same time, we can say that the ideology God does not acceptable. Again, we are faced with a problem of logic here because in logic, we cannot accept the statement B and not B are both true because this involves a contradiction. So relativism lead to serious contradicting logical problem. Scientists also reject notion of relativism because if they accept the notion, it means carrying the implication that the scientific study cannot be as well as possible. Relativism denies the existence of absolute fact or truth, so it's a challenge to religious belief because religion is dogmatic, meaning that religious belief cannot be challenged or changed or challenged. Its acceptance must be absolute and cannot doubt the truth conveyed through something of that religion. From a religious point of view, Atheism is rejected because a belief cannot doubt its religious approach and also for religion. From the point of view of any religion, they do not accept this notion of relativism because it may raise doubts in their belief as taught by a particular religion.